I'm in a mood. It's probably because I'm trying to attract the attention of sassy white women with my sassy white woman bitch pudding shirt. One of the most brilliant characters ever made. One of the sassiest wigger chicks. They're simply not. Outside of Catch Me Outside, there's simply not enough female wigger images in our society meant to be entertaining, and bitch pudding. Blam! Blam! Bitch pudding is one of the best of them all. So, Summit of the Future 2024, the United Nations Summit of the Future has this idea called deplatforming misinformation artists, debanking, putting pressure on people who say things that governments don't like, and that the United Nations will be able to do all sorts of stuff to countries that don't go along with what the United Nations says. So this is entirely going to be the system of kicking, deplatforming, and debanking. This is what it all was. Once again, the right wing was right. It just took time for there to be an infrastructure that this would happen. So there's going to be a lot of people who are going to posit, this is this bogeyman from the right wing. Okay, so who dominates the United Nations? The Ummah or Christian states? Now, if you're Israel, do you want this rule? I'll let that sink in. Then, who will and who won't follow the dictates of such a program? Well, let's once again go back to that same example. The Ummah is probably not very pleased with how the Uyghurs are being treated. Remember, the liberals don't even remember that Tibet ever existed. It's just an old bumper sticker on their Volvo. But the Uyghurs, they're still kind of an attractive, group. So, will China give a shit about what the UN has to say when they are like, you can't treat them like that? Will China give a shit? When the Ummah through the UN says, no India, no Modi, no Hindu nationalists, you have to let Muslims into your country. Like, you have to. Even though you're one of the most populous nations in the world, there's a bunch of Muslims that want to be in India because Muhammad said that the Muslim people were allowed to ravage it. And it was a prophecy. So saith Momo. And the angel Jabril. So, and then, imagine, that's the big one. Taoism, Buddhists couldn't exist in a world of Muslims. This is why all Buddhist populations that have Muslim neighbors usually have a theology that says the Dharma can't be taught to them. Now, the thing about this is, the Dharma is considered sort of transcendentally true. But there are some conditions of actual sentience that you have to have. So in a way, what they're arguing is that conversion to the Islamic faith sort of compromises one's sentience itself into Buddhists. That, or it so permanently distorts your ability to have right views that you cannot learn the Dharma. Like, Tibetan Buddhism actually has a demeaning name for the Islamic people that they encountered. And it's because it was constant war between Tibetan Buddhists and their neighboring Muslims, because Islam cannot abide Buddhism in any way, shape, or form. It's only through a group that's some kind of mystical cult in Indonesia called Subud that there's some kind of difference in this. But outside of that, no. Islam and Buddhism, Islam has always tried to crush the Buddhists because they think you're worshiping a man. And that's it. That to them, that's haram, you must die. That's it. There's not... People want to try to remember it another way, and they're wrong. And the Buddhists tell you so. So if there's this summit in the UN where suddenly there's this vote that you could just make countries do things, what are people supposed to do about the Ummah? And I really mean that about like a country like Israel. If the UN ends up getting this much power, why would Israel not just go total banana boat ape shit on everyone as soon as possible? I mean, like, this is, yeah. So one, there's a lot of disaster that this is fraught with, but this is also obviously based around this idea that there's this elite bunch of people who control the internet and the banking infrastructure. We're going to just make people do and say things. And so the right wing was right in this. That's what this keeps coming down to. So one of the key things, they're saying this summit is supposed to suddenly give the UN abilities to deal with medical emergencies and crises and disasters, faster. We need it faster. Panic. We need it faster. So, and that's how this is going to fail. And that's the thing, is I'm sitting back and I'm like, no, this is going to fail. They're going to keep trying to make this happen, and it's going to fail. The Democrats are going to act like only the most rogue of people, the craziest yahoos, would stand up against such an idea. When, of course, this is going to be like, no, every nation has its sovereign powers. That's the whole point of there being a nations that are coming together in some form of unity to make decisions. They have to be sovereign and individual nations to do so. That doesn't matter, because those are factual. That's all rational. That's like using words the way they're supposed to be used. That's not what we do anymore. Somewhere there are a bunch of women who have failed upward, and they've been rewarded with lots of really awesome positions. They don't make products, they can't provide services, but they have college degrees, and they know that America should just do whatever the fuck France says, or Belgium, or somebody in the UN knows better than us. They're better. You see, because they could go there and they could get sex pills for nothing. And they could have sex on vacation while they're quote-unquote traveling and not have to worry. Whatever it is that's so damn attractive about this idea of like some enclave of the world, once they have a small majority or small amount of say, that they're going to tell everybody, and especially us Americans, how we could be better. Because of course this is always for liberal women, and to some degree liberal men. This is always the noble savage. All these other countries are really not so much more civilized or have a better legal system. They have actually a recognizable system of rights, the way we think of rights, as the government can't do things to you because you have rights. This will be these are people that they don't understand any of that. They don't care about any of that. That doesn't matter to them. They are really positive rights people. They think that the government should be giving out privileges. This is very much the women's way that they see the way the world should be. And many Democratic men who it's like, well, the women approve of me, liberal women approve of me, I should also be one of the people who has all these various privileges because I do all they pat me on the head like a good dog. I recycle and I wear sandals with socks. So liberal women understand I'm on the team. I don't want Storm, a sexy, attractive black woman. I want her huge. I want her to be real big, like a storm front. Like a giant nuble, So, okay, so there's that. Okay, so I'm that idea I had. So this is I was saying in a video a moment before this. What you do is you have a contest, like you have. I mean, Umar Johnson wouldn't do this. It would be kind of interesting to see Umar Johnson actually try to run something like this, but I don't think he's that kind of guy. But like the Breakfast Club, Fresh and Fit could totally do. Fresh and Fit would kill it if they did this. Because what would be the best is if they had a multi-racial panel. They had a bunch of people on who, and a bunch of these people, like some of the people were not necessarily black American women. And now, if this was one that skewed a little older, maybe this is something that they could actually do a thing about, like what women who are a bit older can tell women who are a bit younger. That might be a good one. The Whatever podcast. Oh my gosh, the Whatever podcast would absolutely smash. The internet would come apart at the seams because they're white, so they would come apart at the seams if they did this. But what it is that, you have a picture of the lady who runs the diner in What's Happening, Rosie. I think her name's Rose or Rosie in the show. Then you have the neighbor from Good Times, who is always telling Booker what for. And then you have Barbara, you have Nell Carter, and you have Barbara from Barbara and the Browns. And you keep rotating the picture. You don't say who the person is for a while. That's like one of the rounds. Which one is Nell Carter? Which one of these women is Barbara from Barbara and the Browns? And you really go through, all these various black American characters. There's, 2 from Battlestar Galactica. I know, and I mean men, too. This actually, I was thinking at first just women, but then I'm like, no, make it a little easier. And it put on the older brother who became a crackhead, if I remember correctly, from Different Strokes. And you let them try to guess. You match the name to the television star. And now, of course, a lot of you are like, these are old shows. And it's like, that's the point. Black Americans were on television for a long time. These people need to stop lying. There's these beloved characters that now we have to claim never existed because a bunch of poorly educated children want to burn down shoe stores. And it's just, after a while, it's one of these things like, God damn it, how don't you know anything about, your own people? Even in this regard of, even in, a sort of a ridiculous sense, when it comes to, television characters. That was one, remember when The Godfather, may he rest in peace, Kevin Samuels brought up the video about Eartha Kitt. And Eartha Kitt talking about how she didn't need a man. See, that's what really, black women hated Kevin Samuels because Kevin Samuels was truly black. He could remember the history of his people, and he could cite the history of his people, black Americans, to make his point about how people act now compared to how they acted then. That one where he had Eartha Kitt and the video of Eartha Kitt, that was priceless. That was an absolutely priceless piece of footage for him to have put on. And one of the most important things about it was the subtlety of the body language. And then the whole thing of Eartha Kitt was one of the most popular actresses of her day. She was considered one of the sexiest women in Hollywood. You know, a really good one is to ask the crowd. If there's a bunch of these women who it's like, so any of you here kind of nerdy, like you kind of like nerd stuff like Star Wars or Star Trek, ask then when was the first interracial kiss on television? None of them will know. You know, especially the ones who, like, if they have a degree in something having to do with the media, they have a degree in being black. I bet that's one they won't even know. Now, there's a bunch of you right now who are like, I know what you're talking about. That was Star Trek. That was the thing that made Star Trek one of the most legendary shows that only had one season. Was that Star Trek was the show that had the first interracial kiss on network television in the history of the United States. I guarantee you, Charlemagne the God could put $100 on the table and say, black women, tell me what television show. He would keep his money. Doesn't matter their education level. I guarantee you he would keep his fucking money because they never know about their own history. And that's why they complain. We're not in movies, we're not in television. Oh, and earlier I had said something about the most popular female fiction character by the volume of writing. One of the most important African characters in American fiction. Put it in the comments. Some of you will be like, I think you're talking about this woman. I'll even do that. It's a female character. There's not many there's just not that many. At this point, there's not that many. But this character has been one of the most voluminously written about characters since the 1960s and still appears in movies. That even there, I could make it even easier. I almost guarantee only black males would answer this accurately. There would be like that handful of really kind of funny, nerdy black girls who would be like, you're obviously talking about blah, blah, blah. You know, like, come on, like, this is easy. But she would, come on. No, but it's not. It's not easy because people there's this thing in Black Americana right now as if nobody ever heard of black people, wrote about them, took a picture of them, like nothing. Could you imagine if you were to show people the Harlem Nights and to show, and like, does anybody know who Jack Hay is? Is that Kiki Roberts or Jack Hay? Now somebody's going to be like, Kiki Roberts, oh my God, yeah. Could you show a picture of one of the most well-known black American hostesses of a show for I think a decade or more? And or here's another. You put Jack Hay, Kiki Roberts from Showtime at the Apollo, and let's see, you could put Robin Givens up there, and you ask who's who. Who's Jack Hay? Who's Kiki Roberts? Who's Robin Givens? All heartthrobs, or at least pretty women, or at least the idea of a beautiful comedian, like with Jack Hay. She was a well-known comedian at that time. There's just so many of these characters. Then there's like, you could do so many of these from the Spike Lee joints. The various, like, the various actresses from the Spike Lee joints, and you just mix them up. I would suggest you even mix some of their names up. Like, you come up with a fake name now and then you joke around like, no, none of these characters are that person. We just are messing with you. But I guarantee you that if you had an audience of black women on a black show, they could not name these black people. They couldn't name them. I guarantee it. And he could put money on the table. That's the part that I think would really nail it, is money sitting there on the table. No cell phones. Like, the cell phones are sitting there on the table, and so is the money. So no one can look it up. They have to have some idea who these people were, or at least try to guess or something. And I bet Charlemagne would keep his money. I bet Fresh and Fit would keep their money. And they could even advertise it like that. We're going to have a game show. We're not going to tell you what it is. And you see, can you name these various Black American characters, African characters, especially female characters that were well known at the time, were written about, they were on these shows, things like that, and does anybody remember them? Like, I was thinking of it, is it Jack Hay or Marilyn McCoo? Now, some of you would be like, oh my God, Marilyn McCoo. Yeah, Marilyn McCoo was a sex symbol, heartthrob, and on one of the most popular music shows for like a decade. And black women wouldn't know this. They don't care. They have forgotten. And so I think this would be a great game show for these guys' shows. Who is this? Who is this woman? Is this Jack Hay? Is this Robin Givens? Or is this, and they can even come up with a kooky ass name. Or is this MC Light? Something like that, where it doesn't even make sense. The last, the one of the people, or is this, Tawanda? Is this, what was it? The Magnificent Moolah. That would be a great one. That would be funny. All right, later.